Welcome to the Invest Yukon's virtual site tour for Rockhaven Resources Claza project located within the traditional territory of Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation. The Claza deposit is one of Yukon's highest grade plus 1 million ounce gold deposits, and the company owns the deposit 100% with no underlying royalties. It's road accessible. It's only about 3.5 hours drive from the capital city of Whitehorse, and located within an established mining jurisdiction with abundant placer mines. About 12 of the local creeks are all being mined currently, and there's an old historic mine about 8 kilometers away from where we're standing right now. Currently we're standing in between the two main zones that make up the Claza deposit. To the south of us is the BRX zone, to the north is the Central Claza zone. These zones have both been traced for about 4 kilometers along strike, but the most important part of the zones start about here, and as we go out towards the northwest, we get further away from the main mineralizing heat source, so we get more in the distal environment, and we find that the average width of the veins increase, as well as the average grade. So it's very important from this point on, as we move out along strike, this is where the core of our resources and the highest grade portions exist in the resource. We're standing now about 1 kilometer northwest from the core shack. So we've followed the BRX zone down along strike to where we've hit the first cross fault. Now, we discovered this back in 2013 when it was a season when we didn't do any drilling. We did about 10,000 meters of excavator trenching. But what we really wanted to establish was the continuity of the mineralization. And in order to really do that, we wanted to see what it did at surface. So every 50 meters we put in a trench, all the way about from the start of the zone, about 2 kilometers away from this point, every 50 meters. And one of the things that really stuck out for me as I was part of that exploration or that trenching program was that you could stand up at the top of the hill and you could actually see the mineralized zones on the top of each of the trench piles for as far as basically you could see, which was down to about this point where we hit the first cross fault. Now the zone is offset by about 80 meters. So as we walk down, this is basically the crown jewel of the project. It's extremely high grade. We're sitting at, well, in pit constrained resources, 230,000 ounces of gold at 9.5 grams average. So again, very special part of the deposit. We've tested this, obviously you can see we've exposed it on surface here, but we've tested down to a depth of about 450 meters vertically, about 525 meters down dip, and the zone is still extremely strong. That hole cut about 1.37 meters of about 16 grams gold and 1,400 grams silver and about 12% combined lead zinc. So it's, I think it's one of the neat things about the Claza deposit is that we've got the mineralization all at surface, but even at our deepest holes, which really relatively isn't that deep compared to a lot of other deposits out there, we still have really, really strong mineralization. So it really speaks to the expansion potential down dip. We'll just walk down into the trench rib here and take a look at what we see for the mineralization. This is an extremely high-grade mineralized vein that runs again for about 500 meters, half a kilometer along strike, and we've traced it down for almost half a kilometer. So it's a, it's a relatively big volume of rock that hosts just spectacular grades throughout. And I think one of the neat things too about this mineralization, you get a sense from the surface showing here in the stripped off area, is that it's not potty. The mineralization doesn't form these little ore shoots and little blebs within the structure. It's basically sheet-like, and so that's why most of the holes that we put in on this zone to test the zone have returned significant mineralization. We're at the Claza core shack now. This core shack actually was built in 2011. It's right on the site of one of the discovery trenches from 2010. When we made this discovery right here, quite honestly, we had no idea that the veins continued on along strike down away from the main mineralizing porphyry. To the northwest, the veins continued on for from this point going forward about 1.6 kilometers back down the hill. And when we continued to follow the structures along strike, they got not only wider but higher grade. And so that was really neat to see the progression since 2010, when we of course made the discovery on the top of the hill here. In the case of this zone, this is called the BRX zone, right where we stand here. As we followed it along strike, about 1 kilometer from here, it gets into what we call the western zone. So you cross a fault that offsets mineralization by about 80 meters. It steps it back to the south. And in that fault package, it's about 500 meters wide or so. That's the highest grade zones on the property. So in this case, the Western BRX zone, this is a very typical intercept. 21.5 grams gold, 323 grams silver over 1.47 meters. And you can see it's, it's really nice, flashy, really heavy mineralization. It's mainly semi to massive pyrite, arsenopyrite. There's some glean and sphalerite in here as well, but you can see a lot of nice banding and some really cool textures, including some nice brecciation. So that's the BRX zone. The other zone that I want to show is from the Claza zone, and that's located about it's subparallel to the BRX zone. And it's about 800 meters to the north. So these two zones, the BRX and the Claza, make up the bulk of what's now about 1.6 million ounces of gold equivalent at about 5 grams. That's the deposit we're dealing with about 60% of those ounces in the indicated category. Looking at the Central Claza zone now, again, quite similar to the Western BRX zone in the style of mineralization. In this one in particular, you can make out some of the the brecciation. You can see some of these sulfide fragments. That's sphalerite right in there, and some pyrite. And then you've got a bunch of third order veining that's coming in through here and filling up the breccia zones. The main focus for Rockhaven in our 2020 exploration program is to make new discoveries. So we're getting outside of the main hill that hosts the 1.6 million ounces of gold equivalent, and we're looking at some of these outboard targets that we built up over the last couple of years. We're standing now between the Claza deposit towards the north and the Rust target, which we've got a drill set up right now. It's on drill hole 1 of 10. It's a 10-hole drill fence to evaluate a large 2.6 square kilometer arsenic and soil anomaly. That's right at kind of the headwaters, as you can see, of one of the largest placer gold deposits in the entire Mount Nansen district that was mined for the last 25 years by a couple of brothers from Alaska, and they pulled out a lot of gold from there. And the source of the gold has never been identified, so we're hoping that it's coming out of the Rust target. Also, if we look back towards the kind of the east-northeast here, we've got what's called the Victoria, Etzel, and Kelly targets. So these targets, the Kelly, let's start with that. That's getting close to the porphyry center that basically drives the mineralization in the district. We've got one hole planned underneath one of the placer test pits, and then we're going to move up the hill to the Etzel target. It's got really nice soil, arsenic and soil geochem anomaly. We're going to test that with about 8 holes, and then we're going to move further up the hill to the what's called the Victoria target, and that's going to see about another four holes. So that'll be kind of the core targets of the 2020 exploration program. So we're really excited to see what comes out of it.